Now we're talking about omnichannel advertising. Please welcome Dory, Senior Manager Sales at Rakuten Advertising, who will be moderating our second session. And again, thank you so much for hosting us in this amazing kind of surrounding. This panel will explore how Programmatic is basically driving innovation across all the different channels and combine the different channels, make it a real omni-channel kind of experience, hopefully. And again, to the people sitting in front of a screen, please don't forget submitting your questions via the Q&A box. And with that, I hand it over to you, Dory.
Thank you. Very good to have everyone in the room today. I want to introduce my three panelists today. If they could come up, please. So first up, we have joining us from Sportradar, we have Ralf. Ralf is the VP of Product, leading product teams to support Sportradar's sports-centric omni-channel platform. Ralf is also responsible for transforming sports into data-rich, addressable moments for brands across platforms such as search, social, and programmatic. It's great to have you here, Ralf. Ralf has come over from Germany today, so give him a round of applause if we could. Next up, we have Tom Peruzzi, who is the spokesperson of the management board for Virtual Minds, which belongs to ProSieben Sat.1 Media SE. Tom is responsible for the strategic direction and development of the platform's portfolio. Thank you. Tom is also a renowned digital technology expert, mentor, and lecturer. So I'm very lucky to have you here today, and hopefully people will be able to pick your brain after the session or on the questions. Give a round of applause, please. And last, but certainly not least, we have Charlie Brookes, who is the Director of Digital at Bauer Media in the UK. He's responsible for spearheading the digital offering, plus he leads Audio XI, which is the new product aggregating Bauer's first-party data into audience-led commercial solutions. He is also from Stilton, which is a nice town in Cambridgeshire, famous for blue cheese. So
and doesn't have a blue jacket. Forgot his blue jacket.
Everyone, welcome, Charlie. Thank you guys for coming in today. It's a pleasure to have you. So jumping straight into our topic today, which is omni-channel programmatic. The first question I have for you is, with CTV, digital, out of home, and all the platforms that we sort of went into in the first discussion, what opportunities do you see these emerging channels bringing specifically for publishers? And next question is sort of, how do you think publishers can win in these areas effectively? If we can start with Charlie.
I've got the mic, have I? So I like Jason's point that some of this is the extensions. I'm going to call myself the extension. But yeah, I think it's really, really important. His summary was really, really helpful to lead into this, because clearly there's a lot of money being spent in this space, and I think publishers have to innovate and work out how they can play in that space. And then the other point that was made by the rest of the panel, particularly Andrew, about performance is also another key point. So about certainly having three different media channels is really, really advantageous, and working out how you can use those together, how you can make it performance related. Certainly in audio, to give you an example, we know that audio works when people hear ads, but being able to then retarget people because you've pixeled them across the barrel state means you can get some performance information out of that and help advertisers with that feedback loop that was being discussed in the previous panel. So certainly having multi points, and particularly that data that we capture, whether it's contextual data or logged in data or any form of data that you have, bringing it into one place and powering your media solutions, I think, is really key.
So thank you. And Tom, if we could hear your insights in terms of the broader omni-channel perspective.
It's quite tricky currently because he said some more or less everything. No, but no, the thing is, what we shouldn't forget, especially from the publisher perspective, is there's more or less to the two sides of the coin. On the one hand side, we often think omnichannel with regards to the DSP business. On the other hand side, we can think, and I think the panel with curation will take that into account later, that we can think about a little bit more omnichannel on the publisher side, because quite mostly a publisher doesn't have one channel only. They do not only have display or whatever, or CTV, the mostly multi-channel TV houses or multi-channel publishers and stuff like that. So you have to take that into account, that not only the advertiser has to deal with the different flavors of KPIs, with the different flavors of how to measure, what to measure. Is it more brand performance? The panel before had a really good discussion on that already, but it's really about the question, who owns the omnichannel in that game in the future? Will it be the publisher with curation or anything else? Or will it be the demand side platform as we are more or less used to it? And that's one aspect at least we should bring in on a technical level as well, because both sides have to face the fact that one-to-many channels and one-to-one channels, they count differently. You have to measure them differently. They behave differently. But at the end, you want one experience for the advertiser and you want one experience for your customer.
Thank you. And we talked a little in the earlier panel around sort of the sell side consolidation, publishers kind of partnering, I suppose is the right word. But as sectors like retail media, CTV, audio, digital out of home, etc., grow, do you think that we're going to see sort of a rise in more of these walled gardens, or perhaps do you see an alternate model taking more of a hold? Maybe we could start with you down there, Ralf.
Yeah, happy to do so. I think first we could start discussing what is a walled garden and who is a walled garden these days, right? And that's probably where consolidation starts. You see certain acquisitions happening these days, people trying to get closer, especially in the out-of-home space or audio space, creating some, well, premium access to audiences, quality of supply there. Our side, like picking up on the first question, is like when we look from an advertiser's perspective, especially around sports fan, that's what we focus on, is trying to build a holistic experience for a fan. If you think about like on the consolidation piece, working with partners that address audio, out of home, display, CTV all together. As a sports fan, you might waking up, I mean, it's Wimbledon in town. I mean, if you're into tennis, you probably wake up reading about Sinner's game last or yesterday, what happened there. And you listen to a podcast, you get maybe to the grounds and you see you have opportunity to see out of home ads. So there's a lot of consolidation happening there on this side. And there's more opportunity to come to bring this closer together, in my opinion. And it's quite interesting to see also how do you get the message aligned across all of these channels.
Tom, do you want to take the next that question?
Yeah, I really like that question about what a walled garden is, because if you say we know those Googles and stuff like that, often seen as a walled garden, but if we assume that in the value chain, there is someone who owns more or less the whole value chain or can have heavy impact on that, so that you somehow have to rely on this entity, then a few more companies will pop up being walled gardens. And this is something we for sure have to consider, because we often talk about the open web, but with all the consolidation ahead of us, it's always the question, how much open is open when we consolidate like hell, and then we create more and more of those. At least, maybe it's in walled gardens, maybe it's fenced gardens, but something everyone tries to protect his own home turf.
Thank you. And Charlie, what in terms of, I guess, from, when you think of the mindset of a buyer, what sort of advice or challenges perhaps do you see in the sense of consolidation with some platforms, but also that education piece around the different channels that you have perhaps across, out of home audio, etc.?
Yeah, I don't claim to be a buyer, so I've got to be a little bit cautious here what I say. I imagine their world is very, very complex, and understanding that ecosystem gets more complex because of the measurement issues that we're all well aware of. I guess it certainly ties into the walled garden conversation. If you forget gardens, it's basically about IDs, isn't it, and stitching data together. Certainly from a publisher perspective, trying to imagine how that audience can be curated, especially as a company like Bauer has such a strong brand heritage. It's now understanding how you take that trust of those brands and the engagement of those brands, but give a buyer the audiences they're looking for, because their customers aren't talking to them in any other language other than audiences. So we've got to be able to curate them at scale and understand how they move around that ecosystem and be sympathetic to our part in it as a publisher. I hope I haven't offended any people who buy me.
And that sort of leads nicely on to the next question is I suppose, what do you see as the state of measurement across these channels? And And then second part to that, what do you think in your eyes in terms of perhaps from a publisher perspective, what gaps need to be filled in order to realize that full potential?
Am I going again?
Ralf, let's start with you.
So yeah, measurement, omnichannel. I guess, I mean, we're looking into this for many years right now. There's no holy grail on doing this so far. I think there are a lot of challenges. There are different currencies in the industry. Every channel, maybe even every walled or fenced garden, doesn't allow tracking certain KPIs and so on and so forth. So is there a solution to really measure it today? Probably not. Are there like maybe proxies getting closer to it? Yes, there are companies trying to solve more. We just heard AI is probably solving this going forward. I have a big question mark on this one, if that actually is going to happen. But nevertheless, what you can do, especially omni-channel, like, and we hear and we see this with our advertisers as well, more and more focus on performance, overlaying the classic like brand advertising channels out of home, CTV, TV, and bringing this all together, overlaying this maybe with a geographical layer, psychographical layer, and then making this all visible. You see where performance is happening in certain geolocations across certain channels. That's quite interesting. And then, I mean, for us, we collect 300 million data points per day on sports. Seeing where certain activities, Wimbledon, soccer, like we have the Club World Cup in the US happening or having happening, bringing this all together and then putting it nicely over each other. And then you need a certain piece of AI, but I don't think we will solve this anytime soon.
It's tricky to always answer as the second person, and especially after the first panel, because they touched measurement too. But let me maybe dig a little bit deeper on that. And the thing is, first of all, we have different channels with different metrics, with a different understanding. Maybe some are more used to be branding channels, others are the typical performance channels. They all come closer to each other. And there's the acceptance that just by them coming closer to each other, there must be the one KPI that matches them all. Maybe we haven't found that KPI yet. Most likely it will be some outcome-driven KPI, but maybe we still have to dig deeper into that. Maybe it's the reason because we don't see all the signals, because especially larger platforms or social platforms, they don't want us to see everything. But it's not only social platforms, honestly. There's a lot of publishers out there not wanting to share their signals and more or less own the truth of what's happening on their platform. So maybe this is one thing. The second thing is there always a need to compare one-to-many channels with one-to-one channels. We've seen that when we have built the media manager, which allows that you do traditional linear TV, the broadcasted TV advertising, do it programmatically. The first thing is that they asked for traditional performance KPIs, but still it is a one-to-many media where you spread it over the broadcast and air it, and then you are in the more or less traditional TV world. So there is a lot of education to be done. And at last, and I think that we see that more and more, we've seen it, for example, in the TV space in Austria. For sure, it's a smaller country. You could say that maybe it's a little bit easier if you act in a smaller country, but the TV houses, the agencies and large advertisers were sitting together for 2 years and thinking about how the currency of the future should look like in order to be digital, true digital, throughout all kind of video on the one hand side, and to be real time and fit into the existing frame which everyone is used, so that you don't have to change the whole chain. And it worked out. So there is positive examples out there, I would say, going into the right direction.
Yeah, and so you talk about the education piece, and I think that's one really, really important element for us as publishers to sort of make sure we're educating the right people and going to the various buyers, the agencies to sort of give them the layout of the land. I guess from a publisher perspective, maybe Charlie, you can answer this one again. But I guess with the fact that there is that measurement gap across the different channels, across, you know, the way that you report versus your competitors report, how would you, you know, from a publisher perspective, be able to navigate those conversations and to sort of have a really, I suppose, a solution to those, you know, hesitations or those questions that you get from various buyers for each of those individual channels?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got to know what your medium does and what part it plays. Probably swim in your lane. Bauer has multiple touch points, so it can add those together, which is an advantage. But I think most people who are buying media still understand the value and the supply funnel and the way they work. It works differently if you're a car manufacturer to a retailer. So again, understanding who you're talking to, what you're talking to them about, whether the point about get the brief right. If you understand what the person's trying to achieve and you understand your medium, you can help people with that. And we have plenty of measurement tools that look at the products that we produce, and we openly and transparently share them with people. But I think it's hard for any media owner to say that they can represent everything, and understanding your part in that audience buy, I think, is probably the primary objective.
Brilliant. So we've touched on opportunities for publishers with the so the emerging channels like retail media, CTV, digital out of home, the shifting market structure, and some of the ongoing challenges with measurement. What would your advice be for, I suppose, for companies looking to sustain this momentum of growing in emerging channels for the remainder of 2025?
Surely you've got to let Tom answer first.
No, I'm not prepared for that. No, you always have to jump into that for sure. If you go into a new channel, everything may be new. It may look a little bit similar to what you have seen in the past already, but in order to understand, you have to run a campaign, for example, and simply understand the mechanics behind, and then think about how you do it, and not waiting for nice PowerPoint slides, because we all ad tech intermediaries and all publishers, they're used to produce nice PowerPoint slides for sure. So really go into it and ideally have the time, spend some time with the new channel, think about how does it best support my brand, because at the end it's about your brand. It's not about, hey, I've done a digital out of home campaign. It's not a Me Too thingy. It's really about what kind of channel with that certain metric, which I can use as of today. How does it best support my brand? How does it best support my goals within the marketing team? And then go forward, but don't wait for Google or anyone else explaining you how you have to do that.
Yeah. Adding on top of this, maybe, truly understand the channel, what's capable and possible to do in a channel, from measurement to like, how does an audience engage with these type of channels. Understand maybe we are here with the IAB standards, right? So what is in there, especially if it's programmatic, like what is the data points that you actually can access and not, so that you're not buying too much snake oil, because there's a lot out there, and truly understand what can be done and what couldn't be done, and then try to connect, especially the messaging across these channels. If you're running an omni-channel campaign, make sure it ties all in together. I think these are the two things I would like to put on.
Thank you, guys. Do we have any questions from the audience? Pick their brains. Online? Yeah. I think we've got about 9 minutes to spare. Yes.
It's probably not best for us because there's no longer here.
I just wanted to know, look, retail media networks have got incredible first-party data, right? But with every retailer becoming a media company now, how do you ensure scale without sacrificing performance and audience quality?
Just picking it up, and
we avoid that whole walled garden thing.
no, I think there will automatically happen some kind of consolidation. We've seen it already. If I take, for example, Germany, there are a lot of large retailers. First, they started quite enthusiastic with what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve. They've built large organizations, and it was really solid work. But then they figured out that you need to have real size, otherwise you're still a niche player in the whole digital world. And what we see too now is that they come up more and more, how you would call it, retail media aggregation services, which try to unite different smaller retailers, offer them a tailor-made solution on ad tech, so that you can do all the basic retail media thingy. but they don't have to build up everything from the scratch on the one hand side. On the other hand side, they collect the reach which they need in order to be relevant so that you can really target it appropriately. And I would say you will see more and more of those consortia or aggregators popping up in all different countries.
So therefore, we're still turning into a point of someone else throwing it. Right. So yeah, it's a lot.
That's a tricky question to answer. Why does it mic stay with me? You know? It will stay a little bit a lottery for the next 12 to 18 months, but then things will get consolidated. And I have to say, we use the word now the second time, I guess, and with the help of AI, maybe it is 12 months and not 18.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I'm the chair of the Retail and Commerce Media Committee. No, I'm good. I done my bit. I just thought it was a good question to come in on, and I absolutely agree. And you know we're actually, you know, it was funny. I'm sat next to Emma because you know we've done some great work with Programmatic around working directly with retailers in order to be able to offer those audiences in a more democratized way. So that way you can still activate everything within a chain where you can get a closed loop on attribution. So it doesn't become a lottery whatsoever, but at the same time, you're still democratizing that access. It's very timely as well. If I talk about, you know, WPP Media, formerly Group M, and the acquisition of InfoSum, and I feel like, you know, in general, privacy enhancing platforms will play a big role within this because they make the retailer, you know, the retailer's number one commodity from a retail media network perspective is their data. You know, despite what they might think about, you know, how good or bad their tech platforms are, their data is what's really, really important and what makes this tick. And they're clearly very, very protective about that. So if it can be accessed in a way that doesn't compromise on privacy in any way whatsoever and actually enhances the privacy, then we're in a really good spot. But it's still early days.
Thank you very much. Lots of future-facing statements, so lots to unpack. Specifically on the doubt regarding cross-channel measurement, you mentioned a lot of walled gardens now making KPIs available that are quite crucial to facilitating this. Can you imagine any kind of situation in which such disclosures would be in their best interest from like a market structure perspective?
I mean, there's lots of scenarios you could imagine, aren't there? In that one, and that we could be here for a while. I mean, I guess the democratization point is probably what everyone's looking for. How you do is difficult. The InfoSum clean room stuff, I think, is probably one route, and certainly using it to give analysis and insight. You know, if we're here to help advertisers achieve their goals, that insight and that analysis is what everybody's trying to do. No one wants to give their secret sauce away either. So it's how do you find that balance between getting the best possible outcomes whilst maintaining your information, your knowledge, your data. So I think it could and should evolve. How it evolves is complex, which is why this subject goes round and round and round. But I think it has got a lot better in the last 5 or 6 years, in my opinion.
I think even if they are not opening up, I mean, there are more and more initiatives, especially like companies opening up their MMM models on an AI basis. So the more data that becomes available, maybe there are insights which channels might be working and which not, or like to what extent they're working. But that being said, that requires a lot of campaigns, a lot of data, a lot of spend, a lot of insight, and then it still stays somewhat siloed with the advertisers that are spending.
I have to say one I don't want to say I want to defend the big platforms. That's definitely not true. Everyone who knows me would start smiling now. But there's one thing, what we often see somehow that those big platforms, they've one big advantage because they can blur those KPIs and they can say, this is how it is, take it or leave it, and you still buy, and that's only one thing really good, and that would be really nice sometimes for our publishing customers as well, because then you can get out of that cherry picking, and I used to get it like that for the last 30 years, and simply build a new model underneath it, and then become more and more transparent again. If this would be the idea behind hiding first and then opening it up again and again to change the underlying model, then I would be fully okay with that. It doesn't look like that. That's the problem.
Thank you. Do all time. You good? Well, another question?
Of course.
Don't give it
You have the tough questions.
That's all right. This is an easy one. So representing a lot of facets here from the world of Omnichannel, I just want to know, what was the last great ad that made you actually do something, and what platform was it on?
My problem is I'm a sucker for advertising. I've always loved it. So yeah, I'd buy anything. There's a lot of boxes unopened, but yeah, basically because I am so clearly into sport and outdoors, I keep getting sold new things. Always prepared to try them. Got a new pair of trainers the other day that worked brilliantly, and the only problem now, of course, is that I keep being asked to buy them again and again and again and again. So I think that would be the only downside is you've got me now. Stop.
What ad?
Oh yeah, I mean this was a good old fashioned. This was a good old. What were they called? The brand or the type of ad?
Trigger made you go, yes. Was it like even?
Yeah, I mean this was easy. I was on a running site and I got a good old fashioned MPU for a pair of running shoes, and I like the video and the guy wearing them. So you got me, but it wasn't particularly sophisticated.
Actually, it was also an MPU on a site, which is, I mean, everyone talks about like it's not working, but actually it worked. It was shopping, like not shoes, but like trousers, because I needed some for an event, and they looked nice and cool, so I shopped them. So they still work. Yeah, maybe we're still into MPUs. Yeah.
You're not going to make it.
I was just thinking about, my family hates me for not switching the TV channel when there's ad break, because there's so many interesting, funny, creative, emerging, impressive ads. And I would say, you read all the books, you work in that area, you know what's happening to you, and still you like it, and ultimately you do it does something with you.
Nice. Thank you, everyone. If that's all the questions we have in the room, then thank you so much for my panelists today. If you have any other questions, obviously submit them online. We can get back to you after the event.
Thank you, Dory.